This program brought to you by Moneyback Specials from sportsbet.com.au and Harvey Norman. Shop with confidence, online, mobile, in store.
Welcome to the replay of the round 2 AFL clash between the West Coast Eagles and Hawthorn. Both teams coming off round 1 losses, looking for their first win of the season. The West Coast Eagles, a few back into their lineup: Mitch Brown, Brad Dalziel, Callum Sinclair for his first game, a 23-year-old debutant, and Sam Butler also into their lineup. Dalziel will start as the sub. Up against the Hawks, who welcome back their captain Luke Hodge back into their lineup, and a late change for Hawthorn as well. Shane Savage replaces Jack Gunston. Let's go to the action. Underway here at Patterson Stadium. Cox in the ruck, and against him Bailey. Pritis gets the clearance, but Mitchell should cut this off.
Interesting, Marston's gone to Mitchell, despite the fact he was off the back of the square. Looks like he's going to run with him one-on-one.
Birchall first kick a little untidy, but it'll work. Lewis spears this toward, well, he went for the goal square, hoping that Roughhead would peel back to it, and that was not what Roughhead was thinking. Waters long and over the top. Good grab from Hill.
Looks like Ruffy's playing the deep forward early, but he didn't have great chemistry or communication with Jordan Lewis. Lewis put his head down and Ruffy changed leads.
Big crunch by Bailey. Ball out of play. Good opportunity for Max Bailey today. It's going to be a tough, long day for Dean Cox. 31 years of age, turning 32 this year. He's got that opportunity, even though Cox is one of the best ruckmen we've ever seen. Down to Shuey.
Yeah, great work there, great communication. And it looks like Darling's broken forward. His man Schoenmaker has just got completely lost.
Marston to Cripps, but cut off by Gibson, and they can reset. Birchall squeezes it wide, hoping for Burgoyne. A little casual there, ball out of play.
He was happy just to let that go out of play. Schofield's gone to Roughhead in the forward line. That's because Hale's gone deep as well, so they've gone the 3 tools: Hale, Franklin and Roughhead for the Hawthorn Football Club, deep inside 50.
Bailey gets front spot, takes it out of the air, just got a handball off in time. How will the umpire view that from Burgoyne? All okay?
Let's have a look at this last foray forward. They got the ball nicely. Marston gets it out. Now, here's just a setup. That needed to be a long kick to Darling. Unfortunately, it was an early match nerves and a shank.
Full house sign is up here at Patterson Stadium. Magnificent sight to see so many here watching the West Coast Eagles. Genuine premiership contender again in 2013, as are the Hawks. Free kick to Adam Selwood on the wing.
And he read that magnificently. He's obviously watched the tapes and he knows that Max Bailey's going to knock it down to the defensive hip, and he just intercepted it.
Where are the fist? It's going to be a free kick to Cripps. Picked up as a trade, pick 40. They paid St Kilda for him. Second game at his new club. Hill, outstanding first half last week, but he ran out of touch. Horrendous kick.
That's his first playing at one. Every kick he had last week hit a Hawthorn player on the chest.
Especially at this time of the game last week. He was the man they were going to have to try and stop them from winning. Cut off by Brown. Back into the team this week. Almost manufactured something. Franklin, little funny, that handball knocked down. Hams likes to duck into a tackle. Umpire wise to it. Tells him to play it on. Through for a behind.
He's covering some ground, our friend Buddy Franklin, David.
He is, and I tell you what, I don't think his opponent will be covering too much ground for a couple of minutes. Mitch Brown, he's down, he is sore, he's winded. It was a terrific hit right up the middle from Grant Birchall.
So back into the team, didn't play in the loss last week, and trouble early. Oh yeah, opened up.
Yeah. Courage is shown in so many forms in this game, and to open yourself up like that, to tap the ball forward, try and get a positive result for your team. It was great play by Brown, and up and going now.
Well, we've got a big full ground press going here from the West Coast Eagles. They lost it a little bit at times last year, but when they came to the business end of the season, they really had it backfiring, and it's a significant issue today for the Hawks.
Guerra keeps it low. Cox hands to it. It was courteous of the umpires to stop the play for Brown and the West Coast Eagles. Often they elect not to. A player's in the hands of trainers. Rough head to the middle.
That's the danger kick for both sides. Once again, a telegraphed handball.
Anderson. It's only game 2 for Anderson. Game on as the sub last week, so this is the first game he's ever started in. Mitchell. Hales full forward at the moment. Bruce half wrapped up. Rioli back of the had to be a free. Rioli was grabbed. Umpire said play on. Bruce and Rioli. Rioli won high. Had to get one or the other.
Had to work hard for that. Rioli in the end gets the high free kick, but the free kick was there. Looked like Jared at the start for a hold.
Well, it looks like a bit of the old Pagans paddock at play here. Kingy Hale up the ground, and they let Cyril Rioli just charge forward, and he had them for pace.
I like it, Jared. I like it. I like the small full forward in modern football. They get out the back quicker than the big guys, and there's key defenders are let down.
And there's the goal kicking of modern footballers as well. Have to wait on it, but Rioli loves it. Crowd won't so much.
Excellent start by Hawthorn. Sam Mitchell's been very good off the half-back flank to start. You see there, held his hand there, Selwood, got away with that. Bruce was the other player involved there. He actually ran inside forward 50 all by himself, working from half-back as well, getting up as a forward and then coming back. If the ball went front and square, he would have run into an open goal. But Rioli, too good, goes to ground, high free kick.
Yeah, in some ways he was a bit lucky to get that, because he did duck and did take the opponent below the knee, so he was given the benefit of the doubt, and he duly went back and kicked a nice J-curve.
I think the fact that he almost should have got the free kick before that helped him get the second one. Not the umpire like that, but Scott Selwood can't break free. Pleads for a ball up. Umpire kind enough to say yes. Last year's best and fairest winner for the West Coast Eagles, Scott Selwood. Again, almost a clearance. You can call that a clearance if you like. They scramble towards it. Prittis couldn't run away with it. Shepherd can't run away with it. Burgoyne toe pokes it. Franklin, first touch for him. Shields couldn't find his toe. Through Butler. Hard out at Anderson. Gives to Hill, to Burgoyne. Good start this for Hawthorn. Sewell, high. Hale the target again. Can't get there to attempt to mark. Franklin lays a tackle. Looked a little high. Adam Sewell.
Been a worry for the Eagles, Jono, over a long period of time.
Oh, yeah, the whole Selwood family, they know one way, and that's hard at the footy.
Oh, this is too easy.
The pack, Hill. Now, plenty of space ahead of him. He's got another 2 bounces in him at least here, maybe a third and maybe a shot at goal. He'll size it up from 50. Goes with the pass option to the pocket. Well played. And this is a massive opportunity for Callum Sinclair. Into the team this week, 23-year-old from Port Melbourne and your neck of the wood by Morris as well, Jared.
Yeah, he got an opportunity to put himself in front of the West Coast and Fremantle Dockers by coming to the waffle. He's trained hard, he's grown, he's got a lot more athletic, and as you say, he can get a goal with his first kick and join that club, Jono.
Turns 24 years of age this year. Mature age rookie at the start of this summer. And the moment a little too big for him.
Well, they should never have happened, because at the other end of the ground they had Shannon Hearn release. He just received a handball. They know he's going to be the attacking player. Now Hale's just asleep there. He's got to be better than that. I know he's got no agility as compared to Hearn, but he could have blocked his path.
4 go at it. Hearn couldn't take the mark. Caught by Bailey. Sewell somehow. Shuey rode that bump. Marston kept it alive according to the boundary umpire. Hodge, crutch. Welcome back to footy.
That's right, welcome back to senior footy, Luke Hodge.
That's probably the kind of thing you'd enjoy, to get him back into the action, though. Good hard contest. Played for Box Hill last week. Ball number 82. Didn't play the full game, but Hawks have put him in instead of starting him as the sub. Rough head. Birchall.
Geez, they're covering some ground, the forwards. Roughhead up on the wing. Buddy's been up in the goal square, but bad kicks are going to cost you, and the turnover's on.
Schofield. Shuey. A little too wide for Darling. Schoenmakers tries to corral him. Taking to the boundary.
Yeah, did
Gaff.
well.
Back to Darling. It works for Darling, but Schoenmakers really did nothing wrong.
Sinclair's to loosen the forward line if they can spot him up.
Butler puts a little high. Kennedy's got a couple to beat. Guerra with the fist. And Prittis taken to the line with a little help from Josh Gibson.
Well, the smarts of Blue Codge there, getting back, just filling up the hole for Hawthorn, and was able to get in front of Josh Kennedy on that occasion. Just helps his defenders out on a regular basis, which is a real positive for Hawthorn.
Short throw in, and Hale obliges down to Prittis. Shields wide. Franklin with a couple to beat, and should beat them both here. Caught by Butler though. No prior opportunity, so that won't be ball. And he's trying genuinely, and I'm wrong. I thought he didn't have prior. I thought it was a genuine try.
I thought it was a tough call by the umpire. No prior. Arms locked up. Made an attempt.
Waters long. Darling can't get a hand to it. Schoenmakers held his ground. Hodge, dangerous handball. Little fumble off the boot though, unfortunately for Cripps. That was a goal in the offing there.
It's only a matter of time, Kingy. They are peppering the inside 50s now, the Eagles, and at the moment the Hawks are defending well.
I'll tell you what, it's only a matter of time before Darling gets his hand on the ball here, Jack. He's finding some space. Schoenmakers can't go with him on the lead. Gibson's trying to roll and cover Kennedy and Darling at this stage. It's only a matter of time before he makes them pay.
50-metre penalty. I think Burgoyne handballed and then was tackled after he handballed.
That's exactly what happened, Dwayne.
Why is that a 50 then? Why isn't it just another free kick?
I think that's they changed the rule about a year ago because it wasn't a big enough advantage of a player of Gary Ablett's ilk. Was slung after he got a handball away. Long inside 50. Hearn, touchdown, Puopolo. Splendid hands. If Hill can get there, and he can't.
Well, that is just... It's just not good enough at this level, that handball. It just should have had a little bit more flight. It was well picked up by Puopolo, but that should have been a gifted goal.
The front and square work at the moment's been very good. Hill, looks like he probably nearly could have tried to slow down there on the goal line just to try and flick that back and work some magic.
Umpire said the Scott Selwood got a fist on that just. Ball scooped up to Brust.
Oh, talk about a turnover.
So Butler is on the overlap here, gives it out to Schofield, and they're away. Embley can get and go if he wants to. And boy, does he want to. Darling, goal square. Kick needs to be good. Doesn't get any better than that.
Oh, that is magnificent play by the Eagles. Set up by another errant handball by Hawthorn. But what a transition. That is just a magnificent kick by Embley to Darling, who got forward, as Kingy predicted, and will set up for his first goal.
Could even have let that go for a goal. That's how good the kick was. But had to make sure, didn't know exactly where he was. But from the West Coast Eagles, that was football at its finest.
Yeah, the good part about that kick, you're spot on, Dwayne, is the fact that if it did miss, it was going through. And players actually practice that a fair bit these days. Jared, just want to talk about Puopolo?
Well, just two handballs. That one's cost them a goal. That is just not good enough at this level. Needs to be a rocket handball. They had plenty of time, and then the other handball set up this passage of play. Butler gets it, and then brilliant transitional kicking by the Eagles. Just two kicks, two long kicks, sets up what is their first goal of the day.
Players practice that kick, Dwayne, and kicking it to the goal square so that if they miss, it actually has got a big chance of bouncing through if they get a true bounce.
Good bounce from the umpire. Cox and Bailey. Jed Anderson dragged down, didn't have it. Puopolo takes off. Can his kick be a little better than his handball? No, Brown cuts that off.
He read it well there, Brown. He'd be pretty pleased with that.
Hearn to Marston. Floats it a little on Adam Selwood. Anderson went for the fly. Selwood goes to ground, so trouble. Embley to Gaff. Shields tagging him again as he did once last year, holding him to just 15 possessions for the game in one of his finer performances as a tagger last year, Liam Shields.
Well, he'd be happy with his first 12 minutes. Gaff yet to touch the ball.
Selwood's just sagged off as the spare in defence in the sweeping role. Interestingly, Jono, they are going man-on-man with their key defensive halfbacks. One of them just picked up the ball in Beau Waters.
Marston a little too slick, too Butler. Keeps it alive. Crowd a little pensive at the moment.
Well done, Schoenmaker. He's made a pretty good
strong
form.
grab. He's had a good year and a bit, you'd have to say, after a wobbly first 2 years. Sewell, Mitchell.
Good kick.
And Jed Anderson can get and go. Roughhead's feeding back to the square. He goes shorter, hoping for Rioli. Gets there on the bounce. Hill, 50 out. Couple of dance steps. Smith made it impossible for Smith. Hearn, Cripps, caught. Good tackle, Roughhead. Didn't dispose of it legally, even though he had no prior opportunity.
It's good by Roughhead coming up the ground as a forward and with some intensity as well.
Schonberger in goal square, Jono. He wants the one-on-one.
And he goes for the pass option instead, and it works. Brust.
That's the difference, Jared. That's the 7th inside 50 in their first mark. I think they just need to play with some real patience today. The Eagles, they love the fast game. They love teams coming at them quick because they love the counter-attack into space on this big ground. If they can control these passes going in, they'll have to defend for less, the Hawks.
Wasteful in front of goal last week. Arguably cost them the game. These have got to go through when you're away from home.
Was the #1 player in the competition last year for percentages of balls that went to him that ended up in scores. He was a key go-to man last year. He might be again today.
Well, it wasn't his perfect connection, but he got the job done. And the Hawks regained the lead. And they could be further in front, John. They have had a couple of really poor skill execution errors that have cost them goals. Good tackle by Ruffy. Not sure I would have paid the free kick, but you take them if they're there.
And you see on screen there, you see Mitch Brown standing next to Buddy Franklin. Yes, you want to mind him, but at times you just need to come off a couple of metres. He may have been able to fill the gap.
Cyril Rioli into the centre for the first time this afternoon.
Seesawing contest, as you'd expect, between two of the top teams in the AFL.
Good leap.
Bailey got a palm down. Chewy, a clearance of sorts, even though it goes to the side. Shields caught, little fumble, manufactured a handball. Brust, Shields, a wobbler. Franklin forward in a one-on-one. Feeds back, this should be a goal. Should bounce, runs in, easy as you like for Lance Franklin.
But it was brilliant work by Franklin exposing behind, but you've got to give full credit to Luke Bruce. It was just a savage attack on the ball. He kept his feet, didn't give away the free kick. Just have another look. It was a nice tap out. Shuey gets the ball, and this is the contest that creates the goal. In comes Shuey, right, Bruce right there, gets it and then whips it out, and away it goes.
That's why I'm all for the player who kicks a goal not to come straight off the ground, because he's up and about, and as you can see there, Bruce was involved again.
So you, Jared, and David King getting a little bit of your own way each. You've seen Lance Franklin up getting a touch at fullback, and Kingy's now watching him just lurk in the 50.
Well, I don't think you can have anybody as potent as Franklin and not have him near the goals, but I love him doing a bit more work and adding to that midfield variety.
Rough head to Rioli, over the head of Hale, has to go, so does Schofield. Shields stood under it, Schofield almost a little high. Hams down at half, back to lend a hand, Puopolo got it free. Shields can size up the big sticks, strikes it across the face, and it doesn't score.
Might have actually been Shields that attacked that ball earlier, not Bruce, but either way, it was just a great individual act.
Glass just sat on him a little. Roughhead could have made him pay a little more than that. Rioli tucked up against the line, 3 to beat. Lewis bumped out of it. Marston, Scott Selwood. The man who did the bumping was Butler. 15-metre kick to Embley.
Kingy, once again, we've seen the Hawks exposed a little bit on the counter-attack. Do you reckon Clarko would consider going back to the full cluster and getting the defenders up the ground and rolling the dice?
Worth real consideration, I think, Jared. I think it's a great suggestion. They've been lost defensively in this first 5 quarters of football. I just think their defenders are getting drawn to positions they don't want to be with very little support. So it's a great suggestion.
You're going to play so many tools there. I think they just need another line of defence. But here's Cox, speaking of tools.
Another ball in. It's a little breezy down there David King?
It is a little bit fluky at the moment. If anything, it's going to the West Coast Eagles' end, but I'm not thinking it's anything of great significance at this stage.
Flick down. Dangerous area here for the West Coast. And a high tackle. Free kick to Hawthorn.
It was a good hit by Bailey. Shield was the one who did fumble it, but he got back as the +1. Didn't win the ball, but this creates that extra number around the contest for Hawthorn, and Gibson was able to help him out and butter up.
Stratton is target here. He's got gaff. Smaller player. Used the elbow, not the hand. Every game last year, Ben Stratton, after that knee injury that kept him out the year prior, to Guerra. Lance Franklin a 2-on-1, and the two spoil each other. Anderson and Waters dive hard. Schoenmakers comes up. Puopolo tried to steal and go. Schoenmakers tried to shrug the Shepherd tackle, and the flick on will work for Hawthorn. They'll get a ball in.
I think he understands the circumstance, Schoenmakers, the fact with Brian Lake just lingering, looking to come back from injury, and he'll look to cement his spot, and hopefully himself and Brian Lake will be able to hold down the key posts for Hawthorn.
Sewell, hands and knees. Shuey and Bruce. Sewell again. Umpire gives them time. Ball up. Yeah, a few out for Hawthorn. Lake, Ellis, Suckling, Osborne, but for the West Coast, Nat, Nui, Lacroix, Nikoski, Kerr, McKenzie, Sharab Wellingham, of course, as well. So both teams with a few off full strength. Mitchell to half forward. Smith couldn't mark it. Adam Selwood played for a free and got it. It'll come back.
Just something with the ruck contest, we saw Sinclair come over the top, which was good work there as third man up. As West Coast Eagles continuing to monitor. I think it's Brown.
Yep.
But David Hale is continuously knocking the ball to the same spot, and it's being read by the West Coast Eagles. Have a look at it, mix it up a bit.
I think they're doing the concussion test down here on Mitch Brown, boys. This is a significant injury, if that's the case, or a real setback for the coaching staff, given that he's the man in charge of Buddy Franklin at the moment.
Hale, after it went through Cox's legs, gave it to Lewis, to the back, rough head, open goal ahead of him. Just needs to be precise. Cool. Super cool.
He did get some help there, Jared, but the separation that he was able to get on Shannon Hearn was very good for a big fella. Is Roughhead, and you look here, just not the best work. Was that Cox? Not the best work I've seen from Big Dean Cox before, but you see there, good shepherd, and then the separation was excellent from Roughhead. Goals in his sights, and a great finish.
Yeah, it's a nice bit of work from Sean Burgoyne, but also Roughhead. It's the first time we've seen Roughhead take hold of a game early in the piece for a long period of time. And he's on the phone to the coach, and he'll be getting a big pat on the back next to big Damien Monkhorst.
Clearance is 9-4 at this stage in favour of the Hawks, and they've got one goal from a centre bounce clearance already. So
no point.
We keep talking about Nick Nat not being there. It is impacting.
Well, King, it's 3-1 already in Hawthorn's favour, and their clearances have been pretty deep, which is important for them.
Hot conditions, though. Tough conditions. 32 degrees, we understand, out there. So fatigue, you think, should set in at some stage for both these teams. But Hawthorn coming off a 6-day break. West Coast coming off a 15-day break. So a little bit of difference there, although there is some debate as to whether a 15-day break at this time of the year is advantageous.
It works out about one game in a month, though, Dwayne, because they had a break before their first game. And I reckon the body's like the machine, Jono, and if you don't run it, it can just start a little bit lackluster, and that's what we're seeing here from the West Coast Eagles. They need to find some form and find some run.
Certainly blowing out some smoke at the moment. Hawthorn has started well. See Brown back out there as Darling dives, can't mark. Guerra backed into some trouble. Kennedy wrapped him up, but he got it up to Gibson. Shields around the shoulder, free kick.
He started really well, Shields. He has been one of their better players, as has Gibson in deep defence.
So he gets one on gaff here, and a Shepherd. Bailey backs back, but beaten for it. No, Glass drops the mark. Throws it out to Prittis. Marston feeds it back. Natives getting a little restless here at Patterson Stadium. Crowd not enjoying what they're seeing from their Eagles at the moment. Stratton, good fly, good catch.
Well, you said that Shields is running with Gaff at this stage, Jono. Shields has been one of their primary movers, and he's had half a dozen possessions. And Gaff, who's one of their key link players, he's just touched the ball once.
There he is twice. Gave it to Bruce, though. Marston caught. Puopolo through some traffic. Scott Selwood gives it back to Shields, so he gets another floater. Hale attacks it hard. Franklin takes off. Thinks about the goals. That's all he wanted. That is top shelf. Lance Franklin at his best.
It was also a great tap from David Hale that time. He could see the big buddy boy in his sights. It was gifted. But I tell you what, Puopolo isn't going to get any credit for this, but it was his pressure involved in the preceding contest that set the ball up. And he's a little bit unskilled, we know that. He mucked one up earlier in the piece, but he has created it, albeit on the back of one of the most gifted blokes on the ground.
There's only one result here. That was a shot at goal, and an excellent one.
Barely looked at the goals then, but he knew where they were. He is from WA, and some are hoping he'll make this his home ground next year.
Maybe the coach or the defensive coach, midfield coach, will have a talk to young Gaff and say, well, could you have got a hand in on that smother there and put some pressure on the big boy?
Thank you.
22 points the margin. Free kick against the first gamer, so Bailey. Sinclair gave it up.
Really important they win these clearances, Hawthorn, Dwayne, because Cox has pushed forward and Luke Hodge is a direct matchup at fullback.
Franklin got hands to that. That was dangerous. Shuey caught just in time. Butler, wobbly handball, missed Schofield. Brust.
It's their forward pressure at the moment, the Hawks.
Yeah.
They're closing the space really well on West Coast, not allowing them to have that easy exit, which they rely on. They rely on that easy exit and the ball getting over the top.
I think it's Puopolo who's been the primary mover in that area.
Roughhead's done well.
Sinclair flicked it down, but Sewell, Mitchell, Bailey. Burgoyne backs back. Good contest. Waters, Burgoyne. Boundary line, the sanctuary. Scott Selwood knew it. Took it there.
Just having a look at the numbers for Luke Shuey, King. He's had half a dozen possessions, but just one forward of centre. And his great form last year was when he took the ball from centre bounces and created in the front half.
Rioli, clever. Sewell from stand-start. Waters, that's the smother you were talking about, Jared. Throw everything you've got at it and give it a chance of working. Schoenbach is playing a good game at the moment, though. Hawks about to go into attack again. Inside 3 minutes to quarter time. They've kicked the last 4 goals of this game, Hawthorn.
It's a brilliant smother, though. We should highlight that from Bo Waters. That was just A-grade stuff.
Franklin gets a run. Rioli's ball. He's going back as if he's going to have a shot.
He's just waiting for something to appear, and he's got Roughhead and Hale as deep targets.
Thumb clear by Glass. And found the line with it.
Hale let Glass get around the other side of him. Hale needed to be the first in behind Roughhead. And like it did drop over the top, he would have been able to take a good contested mark.
He didn't present himself as a dangerous target at all. He almost ran away from the ball.
4 ruckmen go at that contest. Shepherd clears the danger area. Cox attacked. Stratton likewise flicks it back. Mitchell again. Super quick to Smith. Birchall thinks about sizing them up from there. Didn't want to blaze away. Didn't want to turn it over. Hands it inboard to Hodge, who can kick a long ball. One-on-one, goal square. Here's Shuey. Kept it in front at least. Fumble, but he made it work for him.
He did well then defensively, Shuey. Was taken deep into defence by Lewis and attacked the contest really well. There's the inside 50, 16 to Hawthorn, 9 to West Coast. Hawthorn well on top.
Brown to Shepherd. Another floater. Kennedy needs to find it somehow. Can't here. Sewell off hands. Hale standing forward. Bruce was there. Shields in the end gets it. Breaks free. Flicked it to Burgoyne. Couldn't break free. Rioli. This is quality street from Hawthorn right now.
Well, they've got a lot of guns down in that forward half. They're getting it in there enough. But I reckon Burgoyne has added some polish. Hasn't had a heap of it, but he's running to good spots. And then just put pressure from Brust. And Shields is also getting involved. They are just getting the ball forward a number of times. And they've got those quality street players, as you said, Dwayne, on the back of it. And another goal to one of the brilliant players. Shields again, just being involved with a hand and pressure and just creating some mayhem down there.
He's got a problem on his hands, John Worsfold. They missed the top 4 with 15 wins last year, so he knows he needs to win probably 17 to be top 4, and if they drop the first 2, that's going to be mighty hard. Wide ball, Gibson can see roll out if he wants to. Didn't really attack that as if he wanted to keep it alive. Yeah, 17 wins to be top 4. It's probably what you need. You don't want to have to win 16 of your last 19.
No, that's right. And as Kingy mentioned pre-game, West Coast need to finish top 2 to be a realistic chance to make the grand final. Get the 2 home finals to start. First final, prelim final, and then a lead into a grand final. That's what they'll be aiming for.
Well, they need the likes of Prittis to get his hands on the ball.
Gee, Sinclair marks it, but he gets to take off in Jared.
Yeah, well, just look at the numbers. Hawthorn are running at 73% effectiveness, but they've had it 91 times, and the West Coast Eagles have only had it 65. So some of their better ball winners are getting it, but they're not getting it in dangerous spots, and they're simply not getting it enough.
Mitchell from half-back. Rioli stands back, thinks about going, went with a hand. Butler, Cox, Brown, down to 30 seconds. Butler just pokes it to half-forward in hope. Stratton couldn't mark it. Marston, and they get a late one, the Eagles. Take some momentum in. Cox from outside 50, needed to hit a chest with that. Gibson dragged down, caught, tries to shovel it out. Down to 12 seconds. Umpire lurking around the pack. He'll ball it up. Clock will stop.
I thought he was going to find a holding the ball in there somewhere, Dwayne. He held onto the whistle.
Shannon Hearn just 3 possessions. Waters has had 5, but we haven't seen, with the exception of one magnificent transition, that really good counter-attack from the back.
Needed a mark from this on the siren, and they don't get anywhere near it. Not a disaster yet for the West Coast Eagles, but as we mentioned, you would not be wanting to start 2013 with 2 losses. And of course, both these teams coming into round 2 having had losses in round 1. 28 points the margin at quarter time. The West Coast Eagles can go in and reset at home in front of this capacity crowd. Hawthorn 6-1-37, West Coast 1-3-9.
Colleagues as well in Liam Shields we've spoken about. Bruce has been really good. Burgoyne's had half a dozen possessions, but he's really clever with his taps and setting it up in that forward 50 close to goal.
Second term underway, wobbly bounce, umpire let it roll, didn't recall it, and he'll have to do it again now.
Sewell's performance at the present time, winning a dozen or so possessions, in fact 9 possessions in the first term, but as you saw there, he is all over Prittis, and he is restricting him pretty closely.
There they were again, side by side, and again Prittis gets it and Sewell doesn't let him get a possession away. Mitchell to Burgoyne. Over the head of Roughhead. Tried to flick on towards Lewis, buffeted out of it. Hearn didn't get a kick away. Puopolo ran into that high tackle, so the umpire said play on.
Bruce involved again. Defensive pressure from Hawthorn. We spoke about it in the first quarter. Started well again on that occasion, just locking the ball in the forward half of their ground.
Gibson's the other one who's really performing well. His man Josh Kennedy, one of the great positives last week, hasn't touched the ball, and he really needs to get involved.
Bouncing ball that Gibson attacks in front of Kennedy. On cue for you, Jared. Guerra might mess this up, tries to mop up his own mess. Mitchell.
Good hands.
Parted the seas beautifully to Birchall, and it's an open forward line.
Buddy, he's got Buddy in his sights.
Might have the goals in his sights. Has another bounce. Floats it up, hoping for Rioli in a one-on-one. And it was a 1-on-2 in the end because Waters left his man to make that contest count.
One bounce too many then, I think, Jared, from Birchall. He is an elite kick, and Buddy was trying to read it and did get some separation from his direct opponent.
Yeah, reminded me of a bloke who used to play for the Kangaroos off that half-back line.
Burgoyne reminds me of him as well, kicking a goal from 30 straight out.
Well, inside forward 50. They are just on fire at the present time. It was one bounce too many for Birchall, but again at the stoppages, Kingy will drag you in here, seeing as you're being spoken about. This is just too easy.
It is, and it's a real concern. We've talked about the rucks and the issue they've got at the moment with Nick Nat not there, and I think it's impacting on Dean Cox's ability around the grounds to stay strong, to stay agile. He looks like he's labouring to me. It is having an impact, Jared, and I'm keen to get your thoughts just on what the flow-on effect has been.
And there he is, the goal kicker. Marvellous performance from a stoppage. Yeah, Dean Cox, for me, King, is one of the best ruckmen we know going around and has been for a long time. But his #1 position, there he is winning the ball just under the pressure that we spoke about. But his best position is when he's at forward ruckman rather than the #1 for mine now.
Priddis to Darling, and again Sean Makers wins that contest. Almost won himself a free. Ball still tied up in there. Umpire waits a long time. Not out yet. Sean Makers tries to get it out. Still going at it, Sean Makers. Hasn't had a possession yet, but he's had a good 35 seconds at it and keeps it in there for the ball up.
You're right, they're just fumbling a bit, the West Coast Eagles, and that's that touch aspect that you were speaking about earlier. The fact they haven't one game in 4 weeks. As much training as you do, it's just that game pressure is where you like to find that touch from.
Marston gave it to Darling. Obliges by giving it back, but Barrel's going to beat him.
He's been one of their best, Dwayne Marston. He is working really hard. But there's just none of the run, the free-flowing run. They're unable to get the ball away from stoppages to set any of it up at the present time.
Roughhead doing some ruck work with Cox this time, down to Scott Selwood. And again, Sean Makers stops a clean possession, nearly got one himself. Cripps flicks it out. Priddis jumped on. Free kick against Brewston. Priddis can line up from the paint.
Well, that was just good work from Priddis. He wanted it just slightly more. He read it slightly quicker. Drew the free kick, gets an opportunity.
#1 possession getter for the West Coast in round 1, Matt Priddis. 28 possession game in their loss. And this is ultra important. Strikes it okay, but it's across the face. It'll take a lot of time over that. Maybe that's his style. Guerra. Hale can't get to that contest. Knocked out of Marston. And that's out of play on the full. Nothing going right for the West Coast Eagles right now. 33 points adrift of Hawthorn. Second versus 5th from 2012. Two of the big gun teams of the competition, and Hawthorn making a statement early in this.
Well, mistakes can become infectious. They need a spark from somewhere. They need a player that just maybe does that magical thing, takes on his direct opponent, gets some run and creates something to try and spark this West Coast team.
So Hill finds Puopolo playing for a 50, gives back to Hill. Pokes that one, hoping for Bruce. Cripps front spot, thumped away from him. Franklin doing some roving. Bailey didn't know he was going to give it to him and probably shouldn't have. Gave it straight back and said, "What are you doing, Lance?" Rolls it inside 50. It's set up again. Smith sold the dummy and drills it. 39 points.
Yeah, it's a good old spanking at the moment. Game not over, but the Hawks are just showing their opposition how to play and how to run at the present time. And the combination of Roughhead and Franklin is really working for mine at the present time, Jono.
Well, once the ball hit the deck, Isaac Smith, his eyes would have lit up because he was on Dean Cox. He had Stratton running past, had the 2-on-1 happening, and too smart, went onto his left side and kicked a nice goal. But he was opposed to Dean Cox. Good matchup for Hawthorn.
.39 points and growing. And as Jared said, it's not done yet. Teams do come back from 8, 9, 10 goal deficits, and we saw the Cats come from 9 goals down today to defeat North Melbourne. So plenty of game left in this.
But as you saw there, Dwayne, that kicking efficiency has to improve if they're going to come back and come back hard here, the Eagles.
Scott Selwood to Shannon Hearn. Heads wide. Sam Butler looks for a runner on the outside. Adam Selwood again attacks wide. They need something from Hill up forward, and a goal would be very, very handy right now. They elected not to go to Kennedy on that occasion with the kick forward, and He is out of sorts right now at full forward, still yet to touch the ball, and we've played a quarter and a half.
That's a brilliant kick, Jono. Maguire may have come back a little bit harder to close the space. He lost his man, but Hill just had a great leap, and he desperately needs this one.
22 games last year in his first season at the West Coast, his best season of his career, you'd suggest, but he can't nail that on cue.
Haven't been able to keep the ball in here at the West Coast Eagles. Their famous press just is in position, but it's not working with enough energy to keep the ball inside. Oh.
Mitchell to Lewis. Oh, he gave it to Birchall as if it was Birchall's problem, but it was a problem of Lewis's creating. Hill, start. Might make them pay full price. He can't.
But a good sign, though. I mean, it was on the back of a bad handball, a skill error, but they were able to close down. They've got to do it again and again and again until they get back into this match.
Guerra pumps it outside 50, hoping for Hale. Huge leap, Watersby, let it get to the back. Fatal mistake, perhaps.
Nowhere to go. This is good play.
Brust takes some time, lets the runner go. Rioli wants to tap it and go. Tapped it to Stratton, who couldn't quite get it and go. Anderson flicks it back, cut off by Embley. Might be play on advantage here, the West Coast. No, it's going to Jed Anderson.
He's working hard, Jono. He's only a kid, but geez, his work rate's good.
Just going two for Jed Anderson, and he wants to make the statement to stay in this lineup.
He's tough at the contest as well, Jared.
And with his running, they need him to be able to stay on the side, Dwayne. It's their weakness, and they've got some young kids filling gaps for the moment, including Hill and Anderson.
Birchall to Guerra to Hodge to Smith.
Great setup.
Just see that, Jono. That's exactly what we spoke about in the pre-match. Sharing the ball, make the West Coast defend for longer, and they'll eventually get through with their high level of kicking skills. And I think the West Coast have got a little bit lazy here. They're not covering the ground like we've seen them prior.
He's already kicked one. This is for a 9-goal-to-1 start for Hawthorn, and he fails to score.
I agree with King, because in the past we watched the West Coast Eagles. If the ball does transition like that, they do adjust really well and are able to clog up where the ball travels to. That time, Hawthorn were able to get the ball to the outer side, the fat side of the ground, and hit up an easy target inside forward 50.
Embley to the first gamer, Callum Sinclair.
They've moved that cluster, if you like, across. So, John, I think they're really defending a lot better this week than they were last week.
Kennedy with a couple to beat, and Stratton makes it impossible to beat them. Sean Makers, he heard Birchall's call and gave it. Birchall was tackled, dispossessed, and umpire said play on. Shuey tackled by Stratton, dragged down. Marston again. Embley. Massive moment this coming up for Cripps.
Kick.
And that is exactly what they needed from their recruit. Give them momentum.
Great goal, great conversion for Cripps and for the West Coast Eagles. Umpire gave them plenty of latitude, but Shuey was working and working to try and get the ball out, and then finally Marston found some space. Embley, Cripps, 50 metres. Good goal.
Excellent goal. Had an option inside, but took it on himself to have a pin at the goals. And for West Coast now, it's about restricting Hawthorn's ability, not to go in front at half-time, but just to peg this margin back.
All started with that kick to the fat side. They got out the back of the press with a cluster, and they were able to hit some targets.
Go home factor working for the West Coast, with Jamie Cripps coming home to WA from the Saints over summer. Can they go back-to-back with their goals? Shields.
Good hands.
Guerra with the look-away handball. Birchall. And working hard, Anderson again. Too wide for Smith. Butler's ball. Umpire barking instructions. If you didn't hear earlier, late change for Hawthorn. Gunston out. Shane Savage back in after being dropped initially. Hale fist that to the boundary. Want to try to mark.
Chance to mark there, Hale. I think if a big man can get two hands on the ball clearly, back yourself in, mark it. Intercept marks are so important in today's footy.
Especially against the first gamer. Hale and Sinclair go at it. Prudis, sidestep, and the delivery. Darling and Hill both there. And the mark in the middle of it, Hodge. Amazing.
See, and the options are open up straight down the middle.
Sean Makers Burchell.
One-on-one.
Smith, he knows he's got the overlap, and it is on, well and truly on. Bruce, can he hit a target? Rioli. He had two that he could choose from, and Rioli, 30 metres out in a one-on-one, probably the best of them.
Well, started with a bloke who won a Norm Smith medal in 2008. Current captain Luke Hodge just stood up, stood tough in a tackle and a marking situation, grabbed the mark, and then just immediately opened up the West Coast, whipping the ball sideways. And their kicking skills and ball transition came to the fore.
Keeps it low. Goal umpire does not move. And it's a 9-2 start for Hawthorn.
Well, Rioli, we focused on him coming out of quarter time, and it was fantastic, his ability. But you look here, and that's the run. Look at the middle of the ground. Isaac Smith with separation from Selwood. And then Bruce up the ground as a forward, working back hard, which you need to do here at Subiaco. And then it's the kick. It's the entry inside forward 50 to Rioli, who was able to get in behind Butler. The kick was the important aspect of that, and it was nailed by Bruce.
All-Australian Cyril Rioli, last year for the first time, can be devastating with 20 possessions. He's never had a 30-possession game, but he can kill you with 20. And right now, 3 goals and doing a lot of damage. Lewis a floater. Franklin lurking. Rioli lurking. He wants to outlet handball. Franklin on the left says, I'll take it. No, touched. Did Bailey touch that?
Bailey did touch that. I think he had to go for it. I think Glass was going to touch it regardless.
Strange one, that. Waters short. Gaff finally gets some applause. Stunned crowd here, capacity crowd, and you virtually hear a pin drop. Darling, Gibson with a crushing fist. Cripps, Lewis, Mitchell, Gibson from Burchell, then to Hale.
And they've got the player on the other side of the ground, and he'll be away.
So Gibson to Stratton. Sorry, Burchell to Stratton, and now Puopolo. It's away from Hill.
Work rate superb, Puopolo. He really is putting in the hard ones.
Bradley Hill. WA boy back home. Took the step. Umpire said keep going. Roughhead the jumper. Tried to keep that ball alive with a fist toward the goal square. Little unselfish, little too unselfish perhaps.
The way they've been going at clearances in this game, they'd love it in this position. Scored with Burgoyne earlier in this quarter.
Mitchell tries to scramble it out. Hearn does. Burgoyne. And that'll be a ball in. The umpire screaming touched.
He's a master at getting that quick kick, Sean Burgoyne. Just straight onto the boot.
And he's another who can kill you with 20 possessions.
Effective kicks, Jono, as you said, 61-32.
Burgoyne almost had that again. Mitchell couldn't get a kick away. 15 players around this ball.
And when you consider Hawthorn's game is built on effective kicks, it's no surprise that they're doing well on the scoreboard. 9 goals, 2. They're getting their shots at goal from high efficiency areas.
Bailey, a little too hasty with the kick. These two teams met twice last year, and it was a win apiece. West Coast Eagles winning here, Hawthorn winning at the MCG. Normally tight, close contests. Shepherd breaks free. The outer side towards Cox. Schoenmakers gets a free here.
So you're looking for a response here from the Eagles.
Right.
I mean, this is just getting to critical stage now.
Burchell. Every West Coast Eagles player in front of him right now. Shields. Some jeers from the crowd.
Move it on. Play on.
Stratton, they are playing with them.
They're just leading up into, creating holes for each other, leading up into the space.
Well, they're playing the controlled footy that David King talked about earlier in the piece. They've got the big guns forward. They've got Hale pushing to the goal square. Roughhead's doing some good leads and lead again work, just creating holes. and they're just kicking it in there, expecting their blokes at ground level to create the opportunities and the goals, and they're doing it.
Sometimes the weather can work for you too, Jared. A very hot day here, mid-30s we've spoken about, and when you fall 38 points behind, it can get quite taxing and it can seem like you're done.
Sewell breaks free with it. There were 13 West Coast Eagles players inside 50 waiting for that ball in, and still Sewell found some space. Again, they congest the area, trying to hold it up. Cox, Bailey. It'll come back, not play on advantage, not allowed. Dean Cox's ball and the crowd finding voice.
What they have done well today, Hawthorn, Jared, is the fact, if you look at the free kick, they've picked their time in when to go fast and then when to hold up. Because it is hot, coming off the 6-day break, they've been able to, as a team, get a little bit of a spell out on the ground as well during the game. So smart play by the Hawks in all their setups in this game so far.
Cox to Scott Selwood.
Starting to work into it, Scott Selwood. They're going to need 2 or 3 of his compatriots to go with him. Shuey, Gaff. Gaff just not getting near the footy at this stage. Pritters to get dangerous, getting some ball, but not getting dangerous ball.
Shepherd waited for that. Sewell flicks it up to Roughhead. Shoots it wide, Pugh up tackle. Yeah, splendid tackle by Embley. Shuey pumps it clear. Kennedy and Darling were both there, but Gibson's fist too good. He's had more spoils than any other player in the competition in the past 3 seasons. Josh Gibson, that is his forte, and he found the line again with it perfectly. Brad Hill getting some work done. Hot conditions, 32 degrees. Shuey tries to break free. He dropped it initially. Hill, Marston, open forward line if they can get and run.
Got to move it quickly. Got to move it quickly.
But Darling in a one-on-one. He goes to Hams inboard. Still Darling in a one-on-one. Or Adam Selwood.
Darling's exposed, as you said, Dwayne. One-on-one. Make it count.
Gee, that was terrible. Kick half smothered. Might still the chaos ball could work for them. Kennedy and Darling gives away the free. It's going to Guerra, and Darling's hurt himself in the process.
Well, in the finish, that was just great defence by Hawthorn. They got back in numbers. They were looking pretty exposed, but it was a smother that robbed Darling of any genuine opportunity.
Smith caught by Darling, some pressure at least. Tackles Guerra hard. That's ball. He threw that away. Umpire didn't pay it. Footy gods are here. Deserved a goal. Gets a goal from Embley.
We praise the kicking efficiency of the Hawks, but on that occasion, Guerra let the side down with his use. Short kick, easy kick that he had to hit by Isaac Smith. Then the pressure comes. The forwards from West Coast get their tail up. That's the throw there. Talking about handball first, then try to tap it on.
It was a poor decision to try and take on a bigger bloke like Darling. But finally, they're getting a possession inside their forward 50. They've had just 9 possessions inside forward 50.
Don't give a sucker an even break. Alistair Clarkson not happy. They're still 32 points up. But they gave one away there. Or maybe West Coast Eagles created one with some pressure. Shuey the free after the Cox flick down. Some momentum now. And the crowd are into it. Marston looks up. Pass targets are plenty. Kennedy, haven't seen him at all. And on cue, could kick the biggest goal of the afternoon.
Well, that's why Alistair Clarkson was so furious, because you can just sense as soon as the tackle was made, Jono, the crowd started to just get a little bit of voice. And as Dwayne used the word momentum, it just totally described what we can feel here at the present time. This goal goes through. The West Coast, who could have been dead and buried at half-time, get some belief back.
He is in form. 19 possessions, 8 marks, 2 goals round 1 for the West Coast. From 50, looks good, spectacularly good, and the West Coast Eagles are on the march back.
Well, we talked about that spark earlier, and Jack Darling, he provided it with a big tackle on Guerra a couple of minutes ago, was able to kick the goal himself. Ball goes back into the middle of the ground. Shuey gets a free kick and a quick play on, which was important here. One-on-one footy, and then you see Kennedy coming straight at the kicker. Excellent kick from Marston. Kennedy, first touch of the day, straight over the goal umpire's head.
If you just joined us, Hawthorn did lead by 39 points. Now lead by 26. Into time on second term, and they get another clearance. Critters high inside 50. Kennedy!
Right to be a mark. And they've got Hodge at full back. He is towered over by his opponent, albeit a first gamer in Sinclair, but that is just a great mark.
It's amazing what one tackle, one hard effort can do to change a game.
2 centre clearances to back that up as well, Dwayne.
Josh Kennedy, for the first 42 minutes of this game, did not touch the ball. And now with 2 possessions within 60 seconds can kick 2 goals. Oh, it's there. Put it in the book.
It's a moment that may well define the outcome of this game when Guerra tried to take on the bigger bodied Darling and run through him, because the whole game has turned on its head just for a couple of minutes, but the couple of minutes has resulted in 2 goals to this bloke. Kennedy, bang, bang. 2 centre clearances. All of a sudden, Cox is up and about, as is Pritters. Marston's banged one straight on the chest of Kennedy. Everybody at the ground now believes that the Eagles can get back into this.
Kingy, this is probably the most important centre clearance of the game for both sides.
Last 2 have gone for goals to the Eagles. The crowd's involved emotionally. This is just a 0-0 draw here for the Hawks. They need to make sure they get at minimum a secondary stoppage. Can't lose this one.
4 of the last 5 goals, the West Coast. Mitchell knows it, hacks it clear in hope. Butler gets there in time. Marston, who helped start this fire. Pritters. Marston's been good the whole game, and now they're running off the back of him. Hearn, long. Flick down off Darling's hands, and he gets a free for an arm slap. No. Is he? Yes, he is.
And all of a sudden, the Eagles' game plan starting to work. You got the likes of Hearn and Waters getting involved, getting the ball off the back.
Maybe that's an ear slap.
Plus, they're winning one-on-one battles. Pritters on the wing here. Big one-on-one battle against Sewell. And that creates the overlap run, which we saw from Shannon Hearn.
And now this becomes the biggest kick of the game. His cohorts just kicked 2 in a row.
The wind has absolutely died. There is no resistance whatsoever.
Silence. He drives it long. Crowd are rising. This fire's well and truly started at Patterson Stadium.
Well, we'll see what Hawthorn do now, Jared, whether they throw a couple of numbers behind the footy just to take this lead into half-time and try and control things with 5 minutes to play in this second quarter. West Coast Eagles are all over them at the moment, especially through the middle of the ground. The midfielders for the West Coast Eagles have got on top and have been able to create some good entries, which the forwards have capitalised on for the West Coast Eagles.
Alistair Clarkson on his feet. I said the crowd are rising. Alistair Clarkson off the chair as well. Flick down perfect from Bailey. Burgoyne. Hale forward. Knocked away Waters. Puopolo. Been working hard from the outset. Scoops it up. Takes off. Brust. Kickable by his standards. Burns off Butler, and that's against the flow.
Puopolo.
To silence.
Gee, they needed that one. I mean, this was an avalanche. It was great footy going to the left of screen by the Eagles, and then all of a sudden a centre clearance just from a long bomb, and then Puopolo for mine again. It was a good finish, but it was Puopolo who got it. There's the tap. Burgoyne just gets it, sums it up. There's Anderson, and there's the big boy Hale. They bring the ball to ground. Look at Puopolo. Look at this effort. He just will not give up. Breaks a tackle from Waters, gets the ball, gets on his feet, sets it up.
Look at this here. That's class from Bailey.
Been a long time for Max Bailey. Just 2 games last year with a wrist injury after 3 knee reconstructions, but career's growing by the minute. Cox gets one against the grain here. Scott Selwood. 4.5 minutes to half-time, and this game has changed complexion, and Gaff trying to get into it as well after a quiet half. Mitchell in defence, almost to mark, jumped on, tied up, ball up.
I like his role, Sam Mitchell, floating between half-back, comes up onto the ball when required. 14 disposals in this game, a lot of those in the first quarter. But it's a good role for him to man up on someone, get himself into the game defensively,
Good tackle.
and then work through the midfield.
Gaff tried to flick down to Prittis, stolen by Burgoyne. West Coast have the numbers. Butler. Hearn. Heads wide. Shuey's his target. He's up. And not a bad option. They can reset. 4 minutes left on the clock to half-time. An amazing transformation in this. They were 39 down. It's now a 20-point margin. Embley. Mitchell in defence. Hodge. As long as he could possibly kick it to Puopolo. Glass. Not a great option. Was touched, of course. Ball in.
To your goal either way make a huge difference. If the West Coast Eagles could pinch one more and go in just 14 points down, that's a huge win, given that the game was 5 minutes from being shot. That Guerra tackle on Darling results in an out of bounds, and this avalanche doesn't happen. The game's basically over at half-time.
Brittis's ball, free kick off the ruck contest. And now the runners come. Glass can gather and go here. He's got the runner outside. Waters pumps it, got bumped late. Cripps can't mark. Hodge can't gather. Cripps.
Good tackle.
Dragged down.
Good pressure both sides now.
It's quality versus quality right now. It took a while to get going this game, or at least the West Coast did. But it's on for young and old right here. 3 minutes to half-time. Holding the ball, took it out of the ruck. That's the rule. Had no ruckman there. Dean Cox couldn't get near it.
Oh, and opened up again.
Lewis to Smith. He's got Roughhead as the runner. Schofield with him. Roughhead. Schofield. Roughhead.
Great grab.
Schofield turned his back, and from that moment was dead.
Excellent work by Isaac Smith again through the middle of the ground. He's been able to control that area for most of this second quarter. His work rate's been high. That time just able to sneak out the back after the free kick was paid. And a good delivery again inside 50.
And sends a hush around Patterson Stadium again with another. He's got 2.
You're right, Jared, in the context of the game, that was a big play by Hawthorn.
Well, it just gets them that 28 points, and if they can snag another one, they've almost addressed the drama that unfolded here when the Eagles kicked 4 in a row. That is a brilliant mark. But it was Isaac Smith who you've declared a couple of times. He has just burst into the middle of the ground as if it's been completely formatted half a dozen times to open up the Eagles in this first half of footy, and West Coast have to address it.
Again, the crowd a little nervous. Big couple of minutes coming up before the break. Mitchell. Roughhead in a one-on-one again. Glass with him this time. Free kick. Let's go to Glass.
Yeah, good call.
Had his arm.
Yeah, good call by the umpire. Clear hold there from Roughhead on Glass's arm.
I'd love to get another one, the West Coast, but the last thing they need is to concede one. Have Hawthorn retake all that momentum back into the half-time.
Yeah, they had an opportunity to, the Hawks. Mitchell streaming through the middle, unrestricted.
Embley, Shuey, Hams. Space to work it. Kennedy should leap. Couldn't bring it down. Gaff flicks it out. Sinclair's handle missed the target. Hodge, Mitchell, the old firm. Hodge, Mitchell, Sewell.
Was Hodge going the wrong way there for a split second?
I think he saw it was Birchall or Stratton that he did see behind the footy. I think he was just looking to chip it back, realised he was under a lot of pressure and changed his mind.
Good spoil that from Adam Selwood. He's hurt himself, but he knocked it to Cox.
Who's got into the game in these last 5 or 6 minutes, but danger now.
Guerra to Mitchell to Puopolo. Won't be able to feed back onto this quickly enough, you wouldn't think. take it out in the end, Glass.
Good pressure.
I'll tell you what has been really good today is the intensity and the effort, those hard ball gets, those real body-crunching blows. They've delivered a couple. Birchall was one early on Brown, and here's Hodge straight through Shepherd. He came to the bench, he spent about 3 minutes just sucking in the oxygen. He's back on the ground now.
Cox gave to Shuey, kept it alive. Guerra, third man up, and he spills it. Bush.
Probably had the sun to deal with there, Guerra, so we'll give him an out.
Shields. Push free, and we've got 45 seconds virtually and counting.
I'm not sure Alistair Clarkson's going to give him an out at half-time, Jono.
Puts it up in hope. That's a good pluck from Shuey. He didn't know what was coming, didn't know it was his ball, but he simply made it his. Doesn't want to turn it over right here.
Geez, Hodge's gone back to the future. He's just cruising across that half-back line. He's the extra at this stage. He's one kick behind the play. Hasn't got the pace to close down. Not sure it's the right matchup, but there he is. He's the general, and he's back in business.
One last chance at a late goal for the West Coast. Embley a wobbler. Hill had to go. Causes the contact. Diving through Hodge, though, he stopped that. That would have been a chance for the West Coast with 7 seconds left. Stratton caught, could be ball. Umpire said play on. They haven't been good enough to grab the lead back, the West Coast Eagles, but they have well and truly stopped the bleeding. 11-2-68 to 6-6-42. A lot of football left in this one to finish round 2 here at Patterson Stadium. Bailey and Cox. Cox, second half of that second term was splendid. Sewell almost to clearance. Back to Bailey, who's performed well as well. Inside 50 to Rioli. Slapped away. Smith with the speed. Just ran too fast. Rioli again. Already kicked one from here earlier. He's got 4.
What a start, Jared. Once again, it's a centre break, and that's exactly what John Worsfold was talking about, coming off there with David King before the start of this third quarter. And it was the break there, but it's Cyril Rioli. It's the speed around the contest. Smith involved again. We spoke about him in the second quarter with his speed through the middle of the ground and his ball use. But it's attacking the contest, attacking the front of the contest by the small players from Hawthorn, and they're getting a result, and Cyril's capitalised today with 4 goals.
They are the stats of a match winner. 9 disposals, 4 goals. He's probably been involved in another 2. As close to the goal as they can get him. He's playing as full forward right now.
From the ball up. Again, the West Coast need to stop this bleeding. Bailey long inside 50. Waters got back, thought he was going to mark it initially. Waited for the bounce and it played for him. Hill thought about the gather and go, left it behind. Shields, Birchall, Mitchell. All the usual suspects playing well for Hawthorn. Franklin inside 50, dragged down, too high. Rough hit played on to disadvantage, and luckily Jared Roughead gets away with it.
You're right, Dwayne. He gets away with that one.
Did it in the grand final, much to his team's detriment, and the umpire cuts him some slack there. In fact, the famous one in the grand final could have been a match turner. Here he is here. The whistle's blown.
On the right side, on his right foot as well.
Which is his wrong side.
Which is his wrong side.
From directly out for goal number 3. And the 2 big stars are aligning for Hawthorn.
Well, that was as straight as I've seen Buddy run, and it just came off the boot magnificently. He spoke about his goal kicking and the preparation before it. Have a look at the free kick here. Brown just out of position.
That routine, it was solid, it was compact, and he got the job done.
Welcome back to footy for Mitch Brown. First game of the year brought in this week. Lines up on Franklin. Burgoyne should be ball there. Umpire said play on. Cox, Scott Selwood. Finally, they get an inside 50 of sorts. Knocked away from the first gamer, Callum Sinclair. Still alive, though. Shuey not quite. Gibson elects to keep that one alive, maybe to his detriment. Hodge mops up that little mess. Clever enough to get his arms free. Short pass from Hill, a little wobbly. Franklin should peel back onto this. Lewis Well, the idea was right. The execution was poor. Puopolo, outstanding first half. Back to Hill, who's given them a spark. Shields, Hale. And this for the biggest lead of the game.
Kingy, you saw that unfold, ball going into the Eagles forward line and then basically coming straight out. Are they working hard enough? It doesn't appear so from up here. I think silencing says
that's the answer.
Kingy would probably acknowledge that that is the factor. And right now, the Hawks are getting so much uncontested possession, it points directly to the pressure of the Eagles, or lack thereof.
They've yet to push their lead out past 40 points. The Hawks. Hale's miss makes it the equal biggest lead of the game. 39 points again.
Already in this quarter, only been going 4 minutes, 16 disposals to the Hawks, only 5 to West Coast, but it's 8 contested possessions to the Hawthorn Footy Club, dominating the contest.
Hearn long to Sinclair, and they continue to go to the first gamer.
Jared, I think you're right. At the moment, it's not instinctive what the West Coast, either their ball movement patterns or their defensive mode's not instinctive, and that can be from playing one game in 4 weeks, like you touched on in the pre-game.
Sinclair works hard for front spot. Sorry, Jared.
Looking just rusty at the present time. The pressure of Hawthorn says to me they're ready for the pressure, that they're used to the pressure, and they had just such a huge game at the MCG last week. It was only 6 days ago, and as much as you train for pressure, you just can't reproduce what Hawthorn have had. The issue is, will their legs be there when it really counts in the final turn?
Had a very handy lead last week against the Cats after a splendid first half. Let that one slip. We've seen some teams come from behind in the first couple of rounds of this season. The Cats from 41 down today. Jed Anderson floats it forward. Puopolo couldn't quite trap it. Likewise, Hearn toes it away. Shields, as you heard the umpire say, keep going, boys, not 15. Brust gave it up. Embley caught a little high. Kennedy, Sean Makers has had his measure. Doesn't give the free away. Mitchell quick. Hodge a little untidy. His first game back. Crunched, dragged down. Darling, good fight and good spirit. Mitchell just as hard, and he towed that. Desperation.
Brilliant, Mitchell.
Shields towards Puopolo, half forward. Butler with the fist down to Lewis. Tackle from behind by Shuey. Just got a toe on it. Franklin tried the push off. Unsuccessful. Ball in.
He tried to get onto his left side then, Buddy. This is the rundown tackle from Shuey. Lewis just getting a boot to it.
Got to be careful just with that lunging tackle. He was lucky that Lewis didn't go to ground, but if they're going to tie the Hawks out, they've got to make the Hawks start chasing.
Wobbler from Shepherd. Again, Sean Makers with the fist wins out. Wera and Stratton looked at each other and waited. Could be killed by the hesitation. Hill comes up with it. No one in the goal square. All about the bounce. And it goes for them. Hometown bounce. And the West Coast Eagles stay in it.
Only the 8 disposals to Josh Hill in this game, and he's one player, along with Shannon Hearn, Andrew Gaff and Hams, are the 3 or 4 players that John Worsfold will be asking for an improved effort from in this second half. Darling's competed once again. They get a result on the back of his forward pressure. He's laid 3 or 4 important tackles today, and they've all resulted in goals to the West Coast Eagles. Nice bounce for Josh Hill.
Bounce. Contested possessions this quarter, all going the Hawks' way. Just notice when that ball went into their forward line, Darling was there. It took some time for the cavalry to arrive, and they're just not running back and forth like they need to. This is a better break for the centre, though.
Shepherd hoping for a target inside Fixby. Cox is resting down there. Embley crumbs it, left it behind. Darling shoots it out. The first game of Callum Sinclair. Biggest moment of his career, and he nails it.
And he's happy about it, Jared.
He's celebrating, and so he should. His football chances in his own mind were dead and buried, but he wasn't prepared to give up. He has worked really hard to give himself an opportunity, changed states, took it upon himself to get over here to the west and have a crack in the waffle.
Darling was involved. He was the one who fed the handball out, wins contested possession inside forward 50 for West Coast. Handball out and a good goal.
Bailey got his hand to it. Prittis tries to get the clearance.
He's been good all day, Marston.
Rolls it to half forward. Square read it best. He attacked it and then left Mitchell to go and pick it up against the grain. It works for them. Bailey to Lewis. They've had all the answers so far, Hawthorn. The half forward to Hale. Made it his own. Franklin on the left. Pokes it in the Burgoyne direction. Made it impossible for Burgoyne. Crowd want deliberate.
Yeah, Ruffy wasn't happy. Ruffy wasn't happy on that occasion. He just wanted the high ball to the square, or 5 metres out from the square. His direct opponent, Schofield, bit of a mismatch. Would have backed himself in the air, Roughhead.
Have been creating goals from balls in. That's a throw almost. It is a throw. Umpire saw it. He was on the spot.
Dwayne, this is a big 10 minutes here for Mitch Brown. He's suffering some sort of illness today. There's no doubt he came to the bench again then for 2 to 3 minutes, took some tablets in. I think he's got some sort of stomach bug at the moment. They've asked for a special effort on the phone to the coach to go back out and see if he can curb the competition's best forward.
Well, he did cop that big hit in the first quarter as well. Right down the sternum, opened himself up courageously, copped a big hit. Could be feeling the effects from that as well.
Shuey. Caught a little high by Brust. Umpire was on the spot again. Crowd starting to get involved again. West Coast have kicked the last 2. Keeps it wide. Kennedy crashes the pack. And the ball.
You speak of
like
special efforts.
On the line and stayed in.
You speak of special efforts. They need to lock down on Sam Mitchell somehow and expose him going forward. I saw Embley on him for a little period of time. Gaff's been on him. But he has had 23 possessions. He's mopping up across half-back. Somebody needs to make him accountable.
Hams tries to flick on. Sean Makers was waiting for it. Birchall, Hodge. Smith knew that someone was coming from behind to Stratton. And now the outlet player, Shields. Stratton runs on. Marston will try and shut him down with Stratton on the move. Splendid pass. Franklin's gone down. It's going to have to be a longer kick to the goal square. Hale and Puopolo. Puopolo attacks it as he's attacked it all afternoon. And that's got to be a free in the back. Earned to take it.
The boundary line, Dalziel's taken the green off. Kingy, who's coming on?
It looks like Schofield's been substituted out of the game and they're going for the extra run. I like this time, Jared, halfway through the third term. If they're going to win this game, it's impact required from the sub from now.
Franklin spears it. Hoping for Sewell. Trap and the give. Birchall can steady on the left. Lines them up. It'll come back. Perfection.
Well, that is just brilliant work by Birchall. You were speaking about him at the start of the game or preceding the game, Jono, as a key player for the Hawks and somebody that needs to be stopped. I've loved this bloke's game. Sewell has been on fire, lays it off, and this is a great strike from on the 50. Works it from right to left, but it was Sewell who set it up just nicely. And, gee, this is a critical time now for the West Coast Eagles. Interesting, Kingy, the choice of substitutes. Schofield, who's a tall defender, comes from the ground, and they've got a problem with Mitch Brown as well.
Yeah, strange choice, but I think it's a roll of the dice that he had to take, John Worsfold. He needs some run, and they need it now. They're being exposed on the wings here at Subiaco.
Hill falls, the inopportune time. Lewis.
Well, there's just so lack of pressure there. You just saw Scotty Selwood, who would rather tackle than sleep. He just waited back.
Birchall to Franklin, shields his eyes from the sun. Brown right with him, knocked on, rough head and Glass. Glass just got a hand the way. All-Australian captain from last year shows his quality there, ties it up, ball up.
I tell you, Jared, Puopolo has only had the 7 disposals. It says here 2 tackles, but his pressure from basically minute 1 in this contest has been fantastic. It's not all about the stats. His effort has been first class for Hawthorn.
Fantastic smother, Burgoyne. Waters, well, he seeked the line, dragged down, didn't get a chance to. Smith.
They're on the rack here at the moment, the Hawks.
And it opens up beautifully. They are on the rack, and man has been putting them on the rack from the outset. Liam Shields, he had the tag job on Gaff early, but he's been getting so much of his own ball, they almost need to shut him down. This is possession 16 coming up. And again, this is for a 39-point margin.
He's been dominant through the middle of the ground today, Shields. Excellent job on Andrew Gaff.
To stretch the rubber band to 39 points for the 3rd time in this game. Can't deliver.
Well, we've got some time, Dwayne. Just a slight correction down here. They took a long time to make their decision on the substitute. It's ended up being Ashley Hams, as you can see there. So a small forward out of the game for the extra run of Dalziel. I thought they were going to do it to Will Schofield for a moment, but they've decided to keep him in the game, maybe as a backup for Brown.
Long kick towards Cox and Hale were both there. So it's up to Dalziel to keep the run going for them now. Fresh man on. Hawthorn yet to use their sub. Scott Silver's kick good, but Gibson's fist always wins out.
But it is one area, Dwayne, that Josh Gibson has been one of the best players on the ground, so it's hard to be too critical, but that is just a straight mark.
Shuey, Schoenmakers. Well, there's
I think that's why Brian Lake...
Schoenmakers' class so far today.
Sorry, Dwayne. I think that's why Brian Lake will make such a difference, Jared, to their defensive outfit. He's one who will go after the mark in the genuine contest.
Intercept marks. If he takes it, then the ball goes forward. The Eagles had another opportunity there to counter-attack, and yet they're giving them all away.
Free kick against Cox. Bailey's the man the umpire said the free was for, but Hale's going to take it. And he sits it up for Roughhead's leap. Schofield's right with him. Butler crumbs. They're hanging in there, the West Coast. Hammond towards the wing. Franklin can't get the run, still marks it.
And Josh Gibson is so demented of spoiling. He saw Buddy there and he still wanted to spoil the ball.
Hodge. Birchall. Jed Anderson can't mark, went for the chest mark, bad option. Birchall can't get it on the boot. Mitchell jumped on the back of Marston. Crowd wanted a free.
they're out here.
Comes clear. Hill can stroll in. There's no one ahead. He can have 3 bounces if he wants to. He can have 5 bounces if he wants to. And it bounces away from him. Nearly lost it. Gathered goal.
Well, they just benefited there by 2 blokes pushing back.
Pushing back or just holding their spot?
Not pushing up the ground either.
That's right.
I'm just sort of in my own mind wondering whether this is by fluke or not, but they get the ball out. Darling has gone up the ground, Kennedy's gone up the ground, and Josh Hill is pushing forward. So he read it well, he gets the result. But maybe it's an indicator for John Morsfold. They've got to try something different if they're going to get in it. Push them up, play small into forward line.
Great to have your company wherever you're watching around the land. It's been a super Sunday of AFL football. And this, the last one, threatens to go down to the wire as well. Marston can't fire the handball out. Lewis ducked into that tackle, waiting for the contact, and probably should be ball. And it is.
Yeah, it's a good call from the umpire. He did duck, gave away his protection.
Critis to Marston, to Gaff, to Kennedy. But he spills it. Schoenmakers. Hodge. Steady from half-back. Over Puopolo's head, though. Trying to be too exact. Critis on the march back. Shepherd. This is the kick, though, that counts most. Sends it to the square. Darling was down there. Hill back of the pack. He's got 3. And he single-handedly kept them in it in this third.
He's had an excellent quarter. Josh Hill needed to respond. A quiet first half. And loves getting out the back. You see the long ball coming here. Darling was the one again. He competes. Stratton's on Hill. He flies for the ball. Doesn't bring it forward over the back. And Josh Hill capitalises with the fall of the ball.
But it's also getting some handy possessions.
Josh Hill, who's kicked 3 of West Coast 4 goals in this third term. About the ticket of time on in the third. 32-degree day. Hawthorn coming off that short break. West Coast off a 15-day break, and Franklin takes the mark against the run of play. Every time they get close to West Coast, they concede an easy one.
We watched his routine, his last set shot. He stayed nice and straight, compact. Buddy Franklin, he was only about 20-25 metres out from goal. He'll kick this one from 45, so we'll see if it creates the arc that we're so used to seeing.
Been ultra accurate so far today, as the guys have explained. Different style, that's a shank. And the crowd rise. Still the momentum with the West Coast. More importantly, the lead with Hawthorn. They were 39 up. They've been 39 points up a couple of times, and Brad Sewell has been subbed out. We'll check with David King shortly.
I think he had some work done on that right hamstring, so we're just fearing that it may be a right hamstring injury down here. Certainly some tightness for Brad, because he's their #1 gut runner in the midfield, so that's going to have huge ramifications on the play out of this game.
Oh, I think you're right, Kingy. We've just noticed the last few minutes, Prittis has had a couple of possessions in a bit of space, and Sewell has been the one who's locked down on him.
And the two subs on each other at the moment, Dalziel and Shane Savage. Prittis on cue for you, Jared. To Darling. Handball wasn't really on, and Darling was a little slow. Guerra. Handball not good either. Knocked back down. Scott Selwood. Shuey, little fumble. Wide kick. Might stay alive. Gaff on the line, sees it travel out. So Shane Savage the sub for Hawthorn. If you weren't with us from the outset, Jack Gunston, a late withdrawal from the Hawks 22. Shane Savage, who was dropped, back into the lineup, and Brad Dalziel, the sub for the West Coast, and he's playing for his footy life. Just 2 games last year and just 1 game the year before that. So a rare opportunity for him.
Great mark,
Class,
Skipper.
all class. Cox.
Cyril Rioli is yet to get an opponent. They haven't got the ball yet, so he's not dangerous, but if there's a turnover, look out.
Squeezes it to Embley. Well measured pass. Thought about Marston, and Marston said no. I'm hot. Shepherd. This is the kick. Hill and Kennedy. Hill might crumb this. He's already kicked 3 in the quarter. Sean Maker's over it. Darling, Kennedy, Hill, still Hill. Gives it out. Gaff from the pack, from the pocket. Amazing.
Josh Hill is hot at the moment. Jared, everything that's going in his area, he's having an impact, whether on the scoreboard. That time it was a score assist. Able to get the ball when it hit the ground. Darling was involved, competing. Kennedy was involved, just locking the ball in. Josh Hill with the tackle there first up. See Darling come in. Good pressure, good forward pressure from West Coast. Handball at the back. Gaff in the right spot. Excellent finish.
Suddenly it's a 3-goal game.
And it's dangerous for Hawthorn that this bloke's got a goal. He's a gut runner. He's a proud young bloke, and he knows that 8 possessions hasn't got the job done. He'll be the danger man in the last quarter.
Hale thrown into the ruck. Cox had it. Sub Savage lays a tackle on Prittis. 15 players around this ball in the middle. Dalziel gave that to Scott Selwood. And now the West Coast with the run. Darling bounced kindly for him. Sean Makers hunts him down. Boundary line to help. Umpire said it stayed in. Birchall, Sean Makers. I think he wanted it out. Shields caught by Prittis. No prior opportunity there. Slung to the ground. Has to be a ball up.
And for the first time today, Jono, it looks to me as if the Eagles are on top. It's only been 2 or 3 minutes, but it looks to me like Hawthorn are looking for some petrol. And again, Sam Mitchell getting an uncontested possession because no one wants to make him accountable.
Mitchell, Guerra, Smith, Rioli, and now Franklin, half forward. Brown outpoints him. We saw Franklin fall out of the game in the last half last week.
I reckon they're out of petrol tickets across half-back at the moment, Jared. Guerra's back out in the ground, but he's sore. He's just got the big knock. We've got Sean Mackers, who's trying to cover the ground with Darling, who's running himself ragged. I think they're struggling across half-back here.
Sinclair can't mark. Jed Anderson a floater. Selwood manhandled by Puopolo, free.
You're right, Kingy. Guerra right in front of you. Not good at all.
And just repeating, they've already used their sub Hawthorn. Hearn. Kennedy up late. Brings it to ground. Cox tried quickly, and he hit right where the grass meets the AstroTurf / concrete.
He's done well to get up so quickly here, Kennedy. That's a big hit on the deck.
Scotty Selwood's gone to Mitchell.
Good palm, Sinclair. Kick from Gaff.
but he's
under some pressure.
Ball chasing, he's ball watching, and on the turnover, Mitchell had the space.
Mitchell wants Rioli.
Dwayne, when you look at the back line at the moment, they've got Luke Hodge there, who's had a checkered pre-season, as we said in the pre-game, so he's down on fitness, genuine match fitness. If they can find a way to get Sam Mitchell locked away on this half-back flank, I think they're out of gas. They're out of run, the Hawk defenders.
Hale at half forward. Glass thought he had that. Content to see it across. Everybody takes a breath. 4 minutes 48 to three-quarter time. John Worsfold working overtime. Sinclair and Bailey. Free kick to Wembley. Didn't have it. Umpire lets Shuey play onto advantage. To his disadvantage, though. Marston cut down by Stratton. Shuey needs the handball forward from Hill. He's got one-on-ones ahead. Darling's the long one. He's in position 1A. And he marks. No. Went to ground. Schoenbaker's brilliant. Knocks at Dick Gibson. Caught a little high. Umpire said play on. Had to get it out of Rivers' ball. Darling dives in. And again, the game lifts the gear.
Well, Josh Gibson lucky there. He played for the free kick. Umpire didn't give it to him. Nearly got locked away. Schoenmakers and Darling, what a little matchup that was. Both looked as if they were going to get a free.
Last 10 minutes, West Coast dominating contested possession, 19-6.
Schofield, unkind bounce. Franklin comes down, rough head. That means there's no one forward though. Lewis pumps it and there's no one home. Waters, Puopolo tries to shut him down, does well. Not a lot to go to, now sees Hale. No one in the square. Needs to go backwards really. Hewitt, and almost turns it over. Back towards him, Rioli. Might make something out of nothing here. Parts the seas, sends it to Hill. Glass front spot, and the fist was magnificent. He knuckled that behind him.
Do you think he meant to do that?
Of course he did.
See what David Hale got out of jail there. He almost passed it directly to the Eagles on the burst down the middle.
Take your hat off to the Hawks. They're hanging in here right now. Schofield played on. That's got to be ball.
I think he was disoriented as well then. I think he was trying to go back behind the mark to go the other way. I can't see why he would try and play on in that situation.
Hawthorn trying to hold this 3-goal advantage to three-quarter time. Another floater from Hodge. Clean bowls a couple. The chaos ball will work. Back of the pack, Hill. You can't plan for that.
That was one of the world-class wormer bangers. That has just moved sideways through the air. It's gone through, it must have gone through 5 or 6 pairs of players. And no one laid hand on it. And Brad Hill out the back. They don't come any easier than that. And what an important time.
As a West Coast player, if you're sitting as the speed, you've got to be the last guy in that situation. John Worsfold will be disappointed in that aspect.
Brad Hill comes off for a rest. 7th game for him. He's been the sub 4 of his 5 games last year. And of course, ran out of puff last week. Has he got another quarter left? Prittis to Shuey, and it opens up for the West Coast. Spear inside 50 and Kennedy. Did he call Cox out, or was Cox clever enough to pull up?
I think a combination of both, but Cox did a great job getting out of the way. And a centre clearance there from Prittis coming into his own. Has set that up. It was a brilliant handball. I think it was to Shuey. And the bullet pass has hit Kennedy on the chest, and he hasn't. He's been pretty accurate so far this year.
2 goals in the second term to keep the West Coast in it after not touching the ball before that. Some skip steps, keeps it low. Back to a 3-goal margin. And this is a great showcase of our game right now.
What's been incredible, Jono, has been the accuracy. 12-6 to 15-6.
Great kicking, and that's what modern day footy is about. You've got to be able to convert the opportunity, especially the set shot opportunities from that area of the ground there. And twice Hawthorn have been able to take this game out to 39 points, and West Coast have worked hard to fight their way back into the game. So, as you said, Dwayne, great showcase of modern footy.
Let's have a look at the damage done from centre bounces for both sides. 4 goals, 1 to the Eagles, and they hadn't scored a behind or a score at all in the first quarter, so they've come with a rush. And I think fatigue is a real problem here for the Hawks.
Quick kick forward, Cox, and again, Kennedy had hands on it. Gibson got a fist on it. Kennedy burst free. Shepherd off the side of the boot. We're inside the last 2 minutes. Gibson dragged down. Bailey couldn't get away with it. Mitchell on hands and knees. Burgoyne just hacks it forward in hope. Cut off by Waters, and the West Coast Eagles can reload. They haven't been inside 3 goals since the opening term. Dalziel, sub just on.
Just starting to find some space here. Not a lot of pressure going defensively for the Hawks.
Big moment for Shepherd. He loads up. Goal square. First game of Sinclair can't mark it. Hodge with some experience, but it's Embley's ball. 1 minute left. Embley needs a target inside 50. Fantastic smother, Birchall. Embley back again. Second effort, just as good. Schoenmaker's up. Massive fist. Boundary line is sanctuary, and he finds it.
Great defence by the Hawks there. Schoenmakers, who's in some trouble, has cramp by the looks. Yeah, you can cramp, all right. Double cramp in the calves. That would be
that's painful.
You've got to stretch those.
Well, do the umpires stop play for cramp? Do the umpires give Hawthorn a concession here and stop play?
I don't know why.
They have. Umpire whistles time back on, so they're a man down for this ball in. Flick down to Marston, to Scott Selwood. Couldn't quite break free with it. Toe to Hill, and it works. He hasn't got a lot to go to forward. Make that nothing to go to forward.
Should just hold it up here, Ruffy. Too late.
Savage. And they do go back. That was clever. That was all they could do.
But they've just got to hold it up until Schoenmakers gets back in business.
This is good news for Jack Darling. He has ran Schoenmakers into the ground. They haven't got a logical matchup for him today. I think the last quarter could be Jack's time.
Fisted down though, dangerous here. Bailey, 15 seconds left. Mitchell, rolling ball, and the chaos ball worked last time for Hill. He's attacking it hard, used his hands nicely, gives it back to Mitchell. Down to 4 seconds, 3, bumped on the kick. Brust on the siren, and this'll hurt.
Sam Mitchell has been an absolute star today, and his last minute, you talk about blokes who deserve to get cramps. Sam Mitchell, he's had plenty of ball across the half-back line, but in the final seconds of that quarter, he has just run himself into the ground and set up what could be the pivotal shot at goal.
Wins at this time of year can set up your season. So early in the season, but so important. Both these teams coming in with losses in round 1. 71% was the probability from there. He is normally a dead-eye, and that's a massive miss. The West Coast Eagles would go in at three-quarter time after that miss, thinking they're well and truly back in this contest. I wouldn't be going far. Super Sunday of football. Round 2 has been an epic round for the AFL, and we might have saved the best till last. Hawthorn at three-quarter time by 19 points. And a hush falls over Patterson Stadium for the start of this final term. Crowd, the players, everybody knows how important this one is. Both teams coming into this game without a win, and they don't want to be joining those teams at the bottom end after 2 rounds. GWS, Brisbane, St Kilda, Carlton, North Melbourne, and of course Melbourne, all without a win so far. Marston flicks it wide. Dalziel back to Cox. Court got his arms free. Schofield running off half back. Unkind bounce, but he gets away from Bruce. No, caught him, just got it up in time. Prittis. Scott Selwood. Little 1-2 works. A wobbler inside 50. Hill, hands to it. Got one arm knocked down. Umpire let it roll. Stratton. Bouncing ball. Hill a tackle on Hearn. Good enough to get a boot on it, and it works. Shepherd. They have not been within 3 goals since the opening term, the West Coast.
Well, a lot of gut running there by Scott Selwood. He got away from Sam Mitchell, got a couple of important possessions, then the turnover from Hodge. But another turnover sets up the goal.
Suddenly this becomes the biggest kick of the game. Shanks it. Still in play though. No one can mark it, and it's exactly 2 goals the difference.
And it could just come down to straight
3
shooting.
goals the difference, I should say.
Hawks in the third term, Jono, kicked 4 goals, 5 to the West Coast Eagles, 6 goals straight, and that is the reason they're back in the game.
It was where West Coast got those goals in the third quarter. They were in dangerous spots, got them in deep, and got a couple over the back with their run as well.
Cox, front spot. Holding free, Lance Franklin's ball.
Watching Scott Burns at three-quarter time talk to the defenders and the midfielders from West Coast, and he'd spent a lot of time with Hearn and Dalziel. So Dalziel's on the far wing at the moment. At some point we may see Hearn go up onto the wing because of his long penetrating kick.
Good fist away from Rioli. Disciplined fist from Glass, and he's right now playing on their best forward. He's not playing on Franklin. Played on Rioli there. They've put their best man to Hawthorn's best man.
And Kingo looks as if they're going to just try and play the fast break, have the small forwards as deep as possible, but they've got to get it in there quickly enough.
Gibson. Birchall. Burgoyne. Hawthorn showing some poise.
And they're going the pace, trying to expose Glass. Smith now at full forward.
Hodge to Lewis, who can go to Birchall. Already kicked one from 50. And he drives it home. Simply superb.
Was involved 3 times in that passage of play then. Grant Birchall, penetrating kick as we see, but he was involved in the handball out the back to start that whole passage of play. Then just creeps forward, doesn't do anything with intensity until he knows it's time to go. And then breaks inside forward 50.
His percentage of deliveries that hit targets by foot. 2 splendid goals from him. Lewis with a takeaway. A tumbler. Adam Selwood. Little too slick to Glass, and that'll work for Hawthorn. Taken to the line.
It's been a pivotal matchup in this term. Birchall and his opponents, Brad Shepherd, both have had shots at goal. Shepherd misses his. Birchall's kicked his off a half-back flank, adding some run.
Prittis got it out to Brown. Hurt earlier in this game. Gaff keeps it alive to Darling and Hodge in a one-on-one. Good battle that. Embley collect on the run. Sean Makers, who's been flawless. And flawless again. Just immense poise there under some pressure. And delivers to the target. Hale can line up from 50.
He just kicked the open grass then.
No, he didn't.
Shoal Makers.
He kicked a beautiful pass.
It was a beautiful pass, but sometimes you just got to kick to the space and make your forwards work into it. He did it on that occasion.
Yeah.
And it works out. Hale was then able to come forward and take a nice contested mark diving forward.
15 seconds gone, Dave. 15.
Hawthorn, as we've told you a few times, coming off a 6-day break. West Coast coming off a 15-day break from round 1. Hawks were cramping up in the third. They've had a rest. They've come out firing again early in the fourth. And David Hale kicks one that could be priceless.
Well done to David Hale for the conversion, but he doesn't get an opportunity unless the shoe dances himself clear and sets it up. Didn't look like he wanted to kick. Sinclair applies the pressure, but in the finish, Shoemaker has driven himself into the ground.
Back in the middle. Cox down to Prittis. Every time Hawthorn's threatened to take this one away from the West Coast have found something. And you would think Hawthorn would tire again in this final term. Scott Selwood wide. Good lead, Sinclair.
He's shown some promise, this kid.
Yeah, been a good round 1, game 1 for him. Hodge.
He'll get better.
Kick not so good. Here's a big 23-year-old, and we don't expect Ruckman to have the perfect delivery. What about that? Kennedy took a step there. Lucky to get away with it.
The umpire thought about it as well, Dwayne.
That's
thought about calling play on.
Costly turnover if Kennedy kicks this. Hawthorn came out hard. All the momentum back their way with 2 quick goals. And they hand Kennedy a golden opportunity.
seen that sort of game for Hawthorn. They've had a number of chances to absolutely destroy the Eagles, and yet some of their own mistakes across the half-back line have hurt them.
The dance steps. They've played their best football today, the West Coast, when they've been at breaking strain.
Well, Josh Kennedy's just hung in there today. Didn't start that well, didn't touch the ball for the first quarter and a bit, and then got himself going with 2 quick goals in the second quarter, and now has 4 for the game. So it just shows that if you stay involved and your teammates bring you into the contest like Darling has on the odd occasion today, his positioning there defensively was good and capitalised. Intercept mark and a good goal.
Well, they got Shuey and Embley and Shepherd in the middle. And the young bloke in his first game trying to just at least neutralise Bailey to bring the ball to ground.
Sinclair and Bailey. Bailey almost his own clearance to Mitchell. Had the experienced man to give it to. Butler attacks it in front of Brust. We half had him. Dalziel flicks it wide to Hearn. Jed Anderson has had a quiet afternoon. Sees it to the line.
This is where they need to excite and really explode from these clearance situations. The Eagles, when they do, they look like scoring. Centre bounces become critical, but even these wing line stoppages, they need to be able to explode from here. Otherwise, the Hawks, they'll just take time off the clock.
Cox, the deepest forward, is yet to trouble the scorers, but he looks to me to be the best matchup against Josh Gibson, because Gibson has got a leap, but hasn't got the strength to hold out Cox.
Resting forward was the key for him, being All-Australian again last year. 28 goals in 2012, Cox. He can deliver. Puopolo plays for the free. Shuey jumps in the side. Marston tried the quick flick. Embley can't get a decisive kick, and Marston was content to see a ball in there.
Stratton's gone on to Darling, and Kennedy has now got Shoemaker.
Smith and Hodge getting work done. They'll be back on shortly. Bailey clever again to Mitchell. Throws to Savage. Crowd called throw. Umpire let them go on. Birchall. Last kick was terrible. This one almost as bad. Butler. Outread Brust easily. To Hearn. West Coast have got a punch or two left.
This is the bloke, Dwayne, that has to drive them home. If they need run, he's got it.
Gaff to Cox. Front spot. It's going to plan. Still a long road back. But John Worsfold has put a couple of planks in place. Dean Cox just needs to finish the job.
Great call, Jared. Took Gibson away. He wasn't able to take him deep, because then he's not able to influence coming third man into the contest, which he loves to do. With that big spoil we know he's excellent at.
15.
Dean Cox taking the front position. Tough man to get around.
A 6-time All-Australian. Hits the post.
Doesn't get the job done, but Gaff may be inspired just by getting the taste of it. Cox may get another opportunity. It's pretty clear that they kick the ball to Cox. One-on-one, he's going to grab it.
Birchall.
This is the kick. This is the one they need to turn over and get going back their way.
Franklin hasn't done a lot lately. Brust likewise. Savage and Roughhead can get and go. There's no one ahead of him. Thinks about it. Hill now feeding on. Waters is with him. He didn't want the Hill Waters one-on-one, strangely. He wants Hale working hard on Sinclair. Got it. Too good for the youngster there.
And for mine, it's Buddy Franklin. He's the chaos player. There's the chaos ball you've described, Wayne, but Buddy comes up the ground and it just seems to cause enough chaos for the ball to separate, and players take their attention, or he takes the attention off other players. And again, the foot skills of Hawthorn come to the fore. Huge turnaround. One ruckman misses, another goals. It very close to sealing the win for the Hawks.
This will be 5 times the Hawks have burst the game away from the West Coast. Have they got a punch left, the West Coast Eagles?
Big quarter big last quarter now from David Hale. 2 goals on the board, 4 disposals to go with that. But doing some work in the ruck and then pushing forward hard, and that's exactly what Clarkson would expect from his ruckman. Great kick by Roughhead into the space, didn't break stride, Hale, and goes back and kicks. And that hurts, you're right. Cox missing at one end, Hale going down the other end and nailing it.
With a ton of time left, if they're good enough. Roughhead, big spiral. Hale front spot, can he get there?
Great mark.
Nearly brought it down. Toe poke away by Waters. Smith, as you saw, was getting some work on the hamstrings earlier. Back on his fresh. Roughhead. Some important possessions. Mitchell needs to show some poise. Birchall. Time off the clock, almost as valuable as scores right now for Hawthorn, and rest time invaluable for them. Chance to take a breath or two. Hearn. No mark. Waters flicks it back to Hearn. Ball in. And players are going down left, right to centre. Shuey on the deck now. He's in the middle of this congestion where the umpire wants to put the ball in. So that's one of the reasons they need to stop play here.
He copped one from Buddy Franklin. Going for the footy. Oh, got the knee right in the head.
And you see Lewis on the ground in the background of that vision. And that was an excellent block by Lewis, allowing Franklin to get space on his opponent. Just couldn't get to the contest in time to take the grab.
So again, they stopped play for an injured player. Happened a few times today, and he's coming to the bench.
I think it's a big difference, though, Dwayne, when you've got a concussion potentially and a cramp. Cramp's something you get from fatigue, and to me, that's part of the game. If you can't get off the ground, that's your problem. But this is...
you think that's concussion, knee to the head?
Well, it's going to be potentially concussion, potentially a broken jaw.
Pritis. Drop kicked it away. Birchall got it from Gibson. Long bomb, goal square, Roughhead getting back with Embley. Through for a behind.
Grant Birchall's already kicked 1 this quarter. It just amazes me how he just continues to get free forward of centre.
Love the way the Hawks are really pushing up hard, Kingy. They're on this ground, they're trying to lock it in, and they're doing it well.
And their communication from the bench then to Brett Guerra, just to drag him back to make sure that Marston didn't sneak on and take that ball there. They're throwing everything at them here, the West Coast Eagles, but the Hawks have been really brave.
West Coast Eagles chances in this game hanging by a thread right now. Rioli with a thump inside 50. Tap clear by Embley. The 1-2 with Pritis works. Kennedy needs to mark it. Sean Makers has been his master. Kennedy tracks it down, tried to scoop it to Darling. Gibson, Guerra. Little fumble, but it's okay. Gibson a fumble. Fatigue definitely a factor. Guerra caught, and caught legally. Is he trying hard enough? Umpire says play on. Savage got it 3. Hawks get a break. Smith, Sean Makers, Smith, a bomb. Brust.
Well, Brust was brilliant there. He was the only one of the two that kept his eye on the ball. Marston was body watching. Brust was ball watching, and he owes the Hawks one. He missed an important goal last week. He missed an important goal in the 3rd quarter. This is bread and butter for him generally.
And again, silence over Patterson Stadium. And that's a bomb from 50. It's got the carry, and the Hawks can smell their first win of the season. Just 10 minutes away.
Well, Kingy said it, a brave effort from Hawthorn. That is spot on. 6-day break. 36-point lead with 9 minutes to go. Game's certainly not done yet, because the way footy's played these days, West Coast have the ability to kick multiple goals very, very quickly, but it's been very hot out there, and the Hawthorn Football Club have stood tall from minute 1.
Inside 50 says it all at the present time. The Hawks are just getting this job done.
It's hard to see the doctors letting him back on after that vision there. After all summer we talked about the ramifications of concussions, Shields, and time, the enemy of the West Coast as well now. Takes off. Gets under it a little. Glass up. Couldn't mark it. Roughhead. parts the seas, kicks toward goal, but it's going to be out of play on the full.
Starting to get their shots away now inside the forward 50, as you've spoken about through the course of the game. The last 9 inside 50s, they've scored 5 times. They're just scoring with regularity now, and all forwards look dangerous down there at the moment, Jared.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed their tall department's work today. Kingy, I think they've all contributed. Hale's been really good up in that forward line. Roughhead and Buddy Franklin. It's the best I've seen their chemistry look for a long time.
Did it answer our question in the pre-game, where to play Buddy Franklin?
Yeah, just let him loose. Particularly on a ground this long.
Marston couldn't. Rioli, it's been a one-man show from the outset. Post.
I think their forward line, though, Kingy, has been really unpredictable. They've gone short forward with Rioli and Brad Hill a couple of times. They've pushed their ruckman forward. They've pushed Buddy Franklin up on the half-back line. And they've made everybody share the workload through the middle of the ground.
I think that small forward is a real weapon now. You see Richmond use it with their midfielders going forward, and Rioli, he could play full forward all year.
Bruce in the Rioli direction, got a hand on it. Puobolo could be the knockout blow. Hands it to Roughhead. Stand start, misses.
Well, 7 goals, nearly 8 there, but 7 goals between the big 3 for Hawthorn, Roughhead, Franklin and Hale today. And that's just a good spread, a good even contribution from the big guys for Hawthorn.
If you had to list, if Mike Sheen was about and he wanted to do another list just to keep himself busy, and it was a small forwards list, I reckon Gary, that's a magnificent torpedo. Adler to be number 1. I think Cyril would be probably number 2 as most feared small forward, if they were one out in the square playing in that small full forward role.
And when Cyril's on, he is almost the best player in the competition. Savage kick smothered. Dalziel fighting hard. The 2 subs on each other on the outer wing. Hodge bumped on the kick. Bailey fisted clear by Cox. Dalziel to Shepherd. They haven't given this one up the West Coast. Cripps spills it. Runs into a gang tackle. Kennedy and Shuey over the top. Surely has to, and Darling gives them a glimmer of hope.
Well, it's a good fighting goal there by the Eagles, and well done to Luke Shuey, who clearly could be still sitting on the bench if he wanted to, given that he had an excuse to sit there, but he's back out there and he's running. And at the end of the day, there may be a position in the top 4 or the top 6 that is determined by percentage, if not by points. And all of these goals are going to count.
They're all cooked out there at the moment, the players. This has been a fantastic high-class contest. Hawthorn had all the class early. The West Coast Eagles hit back a few times and one stage kicked 4 goals in 4 minutes. They'd need to do that again now to get back into this. They're still hustling. Scott Selwood tried to get it out. Cox. Handball smothered. Marston, Pritis, little fumble. Through some traffic. Hearn. Ball. Umpire said he had time enough to get rid of it. Free kick Hawthorn.
Hasn't been a huge factor in the game, Shannon Hearn, and they haven't been able to break him free with 10 kicks on 1 handball. Bo Watter's been marginally better at 15. That's not a bad return off the half-back line. At 87% effective.
50-metre penalty, and this will be the sealer. That's heartbreaking. All the hard work to show fight, to stay in it right to the final minute, and a soft 50-metre penalty could be fatal. Brad Hill back home, wearing Chance Bateman's old number 10 this year. And there's the killer blow. The Hawks will win their first game of 2013, and the West Coast Eagles will start 0-2.
Bradley Hill last week, his first quarter was just brilliant. Bruce Shields is the other one. Fantastic job on Gaff on a wing today.
Tell you what, they'd be rapt to have Luke Hodge back in the side, and it's been a pretty fair comeback as well, with 20 possessions, in fact 22 possessions, and some timely intercepts.
Hodge feeds it back. A little untidy, the Hawks, but they are spent. They've given it everything they've had. Rioli, he's been their star. It's an easy one there.
Well, you look at the impacts across half-back. You mentioned Hodge, he's up to 24. Birchall, 27.
Yep.
The keys for West Coast in that end of the ground.
Franklin held.
As Franklin gets a free kick. Waters with 15.
And 50.
And Hearn with 11.
So 2 50s in the last minute. Disastrous, really. Can't win a premiership in the first month of an AFL season, but you can see your premiership chances diminish slightly if all of a sudden you lose your first 2 or 3 and top 4 becomes out of the question. Franklin nails the goal to the booze. David King spoke about it pre-game, how important top 4 and top 2 is for the West Coast chances.
Yes, he was very strong on the fact that if you're a travelling side like the West Coast, you've got to finish in the top 2. Spent a bit of time at Margaret River over the last couple of days. I trained with, or in fact I watched them train, I didn't pull the boots on, the Margaret River Hawks, and strangely enough after the game, a lot of West Coast Eagles supporters were a bit fearful of this situation. They're concerned about the lack of the big boy Nat Nui and Kerr.
All out of their lineup, but the Hawks, a few to come back as well. Brian Lake will add to their back line. Matt Suckling's gone for the year. Michael Osmond played in the Box Hill Hawks team this weekend, we understand. And it's been a good return for Luke Hodge, his first game of the season, to get some match fitness, and he's held his own.
West Coast go to the MCG next week to play the Melbourne Football Club. Daniel Kerr has played 1 game back. Do you give him another game back for some continuity, or do you bring him straight back in to this lineup, or does he play one more at Waffle level?
It's a good question you ask. You'd expect that they'd have a team that's measured.
Rioli stepped through them arrogantly. Lewis to Bruce.
And yeah, with or without Daniel Kerr, so probably wouldn't hurt to leave him here and give him another run through the Waffle.
In other good news for the Hawkers, Brendan Whitecross in the pre-match today, we had a chat with him, Jono and I, and he's back to full training as of next Tuesday. A very excited young man, hopefully playing about round 8 or 9, Jared.
Well, he's been sadly missed. He plays that forward defensive role. I know a few players will be looking over their shoulder, but Puopolo's played that role magnificently today.
Margin 50 points now, the biggest margin of the game.
Yeah, it's got the blowout stage. I'll be really interested to see where David King goes with the microphone at the end of the game. He gives out the BOG, of course, for Fox Footy. Let's just have another look at this. Players are now spent. And Cyril Rioli, he's just worked his way into some great form. Brilliant vision. Jordan Lewis, unsung hero, sets up Bruce, who gets a couple in the last.
And he pumps it in the Franklin direction. Wants to run back into space. It sits for him, strolls in and puts the big full stop on it. He's got 5 and it's a 56-point blowout.
This is impressive from Hawthorn. Sitting before the game, 6-day break, coming off a hard game against Geelong. Conditions tough out here, and to finish this game the way they have, Jared, just shows the work they were able to put in over the summer to respond to situations like they've been put through over the last 2 weeks of footy.
I'm not sure it's as big an issue as some would suggest.
Certainly are pros, the Hawks. Unlucky not to win the premiership last year. Finished top at the end of the home and away season, but lost the grand final. Had some pressure on them last week from their ex-president Jeff Kennett after their loss to Geelong, but it's not going to be easy next week or the week after as well, as you saw their next 4. They've got Collingwood next week. Collingwood coming off a victory today as well, a come from behind victory. So another blockbuster for the Hawks next week. Burgoyne.
It's a tough start to the year, isn't it?
Well, they play the top 7 sides from last year in the first 7 rounds of this year. They were fully aware that they needed to hit the ground running, and this is a powerful last quarter, boys. 8 goals off a 6-day break is enormous.
Adam Selwood's ball. Lance Franklin trying to fool the umpire into thinking it should be his.
Yes, it'll be interesting just to see whether Kingy goes back to his old roots, the half-back flank, and picks out a best on the ground, or whether he moves to the midfield, or maybe even to one of the bigger players.
I have my favourites, Jared.
And you're entitled to.
20 scoring shots in the second half for Hawthorn. 4 goals, 5 in the third quarter, 8 goals, 3 so far in this last quarter.
The West Coast Eagles had so many things in their favour. Full house crowd. 32-degree day, played in the middle of a 32-degree day as well. As we mentioned, Hawthorn coming off a 6-day break to West Coast a long one, and whether that's a factor, as Jared has mentioned a couple of times, it probably works against you sometimes, a long break so early in the season. But this has been a fantastic effort by Hawthorn to come here after last week's small disaster against Geelong. Their ex-president voicing his disapproval. Alistair Clarkson put a giant wet blanket over that fire straight away brilliantly. Showed what poise and confidence he has as a senior coach, and they got on with the job. And they're going to get away with a 10-goal victory away from home.
Might say this week that he deserves an extension now.
Has Liam Shields ever played a better game than the one he has today? He has been a blanket on one of their best players. He's been involved in an amazing amount of forward pressure, and he's had 20 possessions himself.
It's a 5-goal game for Josh Kennedy.
That's a good effort considering, Dwayne, we spoke about. He just couldn't get his hands on it early. Gibson was doing a great job on him along with Showmakers in the first quarter and a half. Hawthorn were going really well then, but he's just worked his way through that situation and will walk away taking a fair bit out of this game now, Josh Kennedy, his second game up.
Round 2 of the AFL season has been an epic. Hawthorn have shown their class. Marston, Shuey, Pritis.
Max Bailey's gone down with cramp.
They could afford to take 1 or 2 off. They don't want to play with 17 men, but
it's been impressive, Max, in his first 2 games.
Yeah, outstanding, given that he only had a 2-game season last year. So many injuries, mainly knee injuries, but a wrist break last year. Hill, Rioli, Birchall, Bruce. Back to Birchall. He's kicked a couple. Heads to Anderson. Forward pocket takes on Waters and kind of wins. All in a victory for Hawthorn. Second game for Jed Anderson. From the territory has slipped in rather nicely. GWS had first turn on his services and elected not to. And that's the next 4 for the West Coast, as you can see. Melbourne next week. And that Melbourne game for the West Coast can't come quick enough.
Max Bailey's found his way to the bench after suffering cramp in the middle. He crossed paths as Buddy come onto the ground. He said, "I'm in the ruck," and Buddy said, "I won't be going in the ruck."
Buddy doesn't do ruck.
Or should he?
Yeah, it's an interesting month for the West Coast. They have the opportunity to destroy their season or set it up. They should get 3 wins. They need to get 3 wins, and they could win all 4.
Where does this leave the West Coast Eagles, Jared? I know we keep saying no Nick, no Eagles, or we made that statement pre-game. This is a real concern now. He may not play for the next 4 or 5 weeks. They lack that spark today, don't they?
Yeah, it's. I mean, he has an impact on a lot of players around him, but Daniel Kerr also and LaCroix have been enormous outs, as has McKenzie. So they are crippled at the present time with 4 of their best players out, and that's why the next month is so important. They just can't afford to be beaten by any of those sides if they are talking top 4 position. Even with this depleted lineup, Jono, they've just got to find a way, knock off Melbourne, then the Blues. That's a huge game for them.
That's why Daniel Kerr, the decision on him is so important, and that's where they will beat Melbourne, where Melbourne are at the moment, but getting him back in that midfield for a big game against the Blues could be the way to go.
Kennedy Trying to hunt down number 6, Smith, Birchall. It's not just the 4 points that Hawthorn get here, it's the 4 points they stop West Coast from getting, because they are a genuine rival for a top 4 spot. You can't fit 5 or 6 teams into the top 4. And if this was round 22, we'd be talking about maybe this game being pivotal to Hawthorn finishing top 4 and West Coast not. A lot of footy still to be played, but the West Coast Eagles have been left in the starting gates for 2013. It'll be an enjoyable flight home for Hawthorn. They've shown yet again they're amongst the best of the best for 2013. Away from home, against the odds, too good. And a 50-point margin for Alistair Clarkson and his men is about right. They've dominated this game from the outset and led by a massive 28 points with a 6-goal-to-1 opening term. 28 points the margin at quarter time. They opened it up to 39 a few times. West Coast Eagles showed some fight backs and did threaten at one stage to get it back to a 2-goal margin, but a 50-point margin at the final siren. 23-10, 148 to 15-8, 98.
Well, it's not too often you walk away with West Coast only having 37 inside 50s on their home ground. Hawthorn 62. So there's the difference right there in the game. The ability of Hawthorn to win the midfield battle today, pump the ball in nice and strong, and that was probably the difference for me, Jared.
Yes, it's you can't win with so few inside 50s unless the opposition are being restricted as well. Let's find out who Kingy thinks was BOG, David.
Well, he wasn't necessarily BOG, but you had a big influence on the day. It's the captain, Luke Hodge. Welcome back to footy firstly.
Yeah, it was tell you what, the intensity lifts a little bit, but no, it was good by the boys. We 6-day break. We ran out of legs a little bit last week, and we thought I had to be a bit smarter today. And I thought we played a good brand of football, but also smart as well. What was your message to the group? Obviously, you've got the dominant role as captain. What was your message during the week at meetings and even today? No, it was nothing major. We played some good footy last week. We just got run over and we missed a few shots we probably should have kicked. So look, you take away probably 15 minutes of football last week and we did a pretty good job. So we just pretty much wanted the same intensity, which I thought we brought today. The mids were good in and under, and I thought our forwards worked well and our defenders were solid. Really tough start to the year. First 7 games, obviously, against last year's top 8 finalists. Yep. Have you made a big focus of getting away to a good start? Oh, look, yeah, I think you do every year. But look, we know we had to play some good footy on the year to get off to a good start. So look, disappointing last week the way we finished, but I thought it was solid today and look forward to Collingwood next week. Go and enjoy it, mate. Have a rest. Thanks, mate.
This has been a Fox Footy production.